Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention. This is your boy, the coach from the WWE. I would like to welcome you to the very first wrestling podcast in the world to take you on a weekly deep dive into classic matches along with legends of the squared circle. Enjoy the discussion. Enjoy the back and forth. There's so much to get into. Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Payoff.
Welcome to an all-new episode of The Payoff. I'm Tom. That's Jeff. Jeff, we're covering, in some ways, one of my favorite matches and angles of all time, and we'll get into all this. But, man, the way this was presented in this era, given the circumstances, this is probably one of the better angles of the 90s, in my opinion. Again, I'm a huge Shawn Michaels mark, but man, the stuff they did with him leading into WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, I just was such a huge fan of it. And I thought they just, it was just so good and so real. And they're, this is Garbage Man, Clown, Hockey Goon era. So it really stuck out as being strong. So I'm excited to cover this one. Any reason in particular you picked it?
Part of it's because it's your boy. Part of it's because it's Owen Hart. Part of it is just this was, again, we talk about it a lot, but this was on that list of Monday Night Raw matches that I wanted to, cover. We got a few more coming up, but just good matches on Monday Night Raw that shouldn't be overlooked. And so, you see Shawn Michaels and Owen Hart on a Monday Night Raw, like, hell yeah. All right, let's do it.
Yeah, well, I'm pumped to cover this one. You ready to get into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. It's time for the build.
Oh, it's time for the build.
All right. So Monday Night Raw, 1995, November 20th. And this is a interesting show. So we're in Richmond, Virginia at the Richmond Coliseum. And this is part of an interesting card because it's almost like they're running like a house show and a Raw taping all at once. Yeah. So you've Goldust defeating Aldo Montoya. You've Sid and the 1-2-3 Kid defeating two jobbers. You have the British Bulldog defeating Diesel by DQ. Can't have one of them win in a dark match, regular.
Point, yeah.
And then the same thing. Bret Hart is going to retain his WWF Championship against The Undertaker by DQ. It's like, just give us clean finishes. So those are your dark matches. On TV this night is the 1-2-3 Kid defeating Hakushi. Skip and Savio Vega fighting to a no contest. And then the Owen Shawn match. And again, this is just a 1 hour Raw, which is a lot of fun. It's like those 1 hour NXT shows were a lot of fun back in the day. So again, one of my favorite storylines, and I love this. How did we get to this match?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting with this. Like I said, weird card. Like the dark matches were great, but then the actual show, watching on TV, just awkward. And so, we'll start with Shawn on this one. We're coming back to the ring. Being the face in May of 1995. This show, or taking place November of 1995. Beating Jeff Jarrett, winning his third Intercontinental Championship. That was July 23rd at In Your House 2. Of course, then he had the title defense against Razor at SummerSlam in the ladder match. Michaels winning that one. This was, as the behind the scenes, behind the curtain kind of rumors we've heard of. This is when the Clique started kind of coming together as well too. And kind of, you're kind of getting into that a little bit here. A month before, October 1995, this is when Michaels was assaulted outside of the bar in New York, and so forfeiting the championship with that one, to his Dean Douglas, Shane Douglas, and In Your House, Great White North, and then him losing that belt to Razor Ramon. And so Michaels kind of coming off of that assault and dealing with that. On the flip side, you had Owen. He actually won the tag team championships from the Smoking Gun at WrestleMania 11. He had his mystery partner at the time, didn't know who it was going to be. Turned out to be Yokozuna, of course.
So good. So good.
Yeah. Yeah, and then working with Jim Cornette, Mr. Fuji at that point, who were already managing Yokozuna. And so, yeah, they defended the titles really for most of half of 1995, ended up losing them to Shawn and Diesel in Your House, September, In Your House 3, that would have been. They held the belts a little bit longer, but then lost them again to the Smoking Guns. And so it's a little bit of tag action here with these guys. You had Shawn's story kind of playing itself out a little bit differently on the flip side, with everything that was going on there. And so, yeah, and then we get this match on a Monday Night Raw. And so, like I said, there'll be more after the fact that we'll talk about, but for now, we'll watch the match and then go from there.
Well, I'm pumped to cover this one. 32-minute mark of the 11/20/1995 Monday Night Raw. 32-minute mark.
Got it.
Jeff, are you ready?
Let's do it, my friend.
All right. It's time for the payoff.
Oh, it's time for the payoff.
All right. So HBK in the ring. Owen in there. We're jumping right into it. So good. I mean, these guys, from a in-ring standpoint, arguably both of their primes, if not prime, very, very close. King of Hearts, Owen Hart on his tights, which again, I love that moniker. Did you see, and this was maybe like 2 months ago now, a month and a half ago, did you see how jacked Kevin Nash is?
Well, so it's interesting because there was an AI photo floating around, but then he posted a real photo and he's still jacked as shit, like just crazy.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I did see it.
Man, I mean, just the fantasy book that, like, man, if you could get one more match out of him, like, I would just love, like, the storyline of it. Like, him coming out and being like, look, I'm a Hall of Famer. I'm proud of everything I've done. I got one more match in me. And, whoever wants to step up, step up. You give that like a month build and throw it on a PLE. I'm all for it. Like, I don't know if he can still do it, but to me, that's a lot of fun. There's not a lot of guys out there that, still look good, could still pull it off, would be good on the mic, but it's like he to me, he's one of them. Like I love that storyline.
I wonder too, like how much we just don't hear about it. We're working hard already in this match too. Both guys working stiff. How much he still talks to Shawn, like how much he even Triple H, like, those guys are so connected. Like, you do got to wonder, like, why hasn't Nash come in and, maybe done a day or so, worked at the Performance Center. Maybe it's just not what he wants to do. Like, that's fine too. But kind of curious. Yeah.
One thing I'd like to put and see what you can find. I'll start trying to send you some stuff. One of Owen Hart's top matches ever was against Jushin Thunder Liger in 1991 overseas. Like, I'd like to cover some of that stuff, just some of these like really, really good, hard hitting Japan matches. I was watching, and I'm a little behind. I think I'm caught up now on all of this season's Dark Side of the Rings, which, by the way, were very good. much better than they were, I think, the previous year or two. They kind of
I agree.
took a dark. Yeah, it was like there were a couple of seasons in there where it was like they just got really dark and like almost like gotcha. Like it was like they just wanted to like fuck with people, and you know you don't need to do that. So they were really good this year. I mean, again, Sensational Sherry. I mean, she had a drug problem, so I mean, there is darkness to it, but also highlighting the good things that these folks did. So the one I just watched, it was the last one I had to watch, was Terry Gordy. But man, like you see some of his stuff in Japan, and it's like, oh my goodness, like finding like a top match there would be a lot of fun. So
like Hogan had a bunch of matches over there. We've never talked about any of those, so I'll work on getting some of those. Yeah, and we'll find some of those. Yeah, it's interesting. I thought I'm with you on this season of the dark side. I did think I think I texted you about it. Like the last episode was weird to me because I felt like they, we're talking about the territories and all that, and then we jump to like now and like, well, this is Vince's karma for all those years ago when he stole the territories, and now he's getting caught with all the sexual abuse stuff. I'm like, it felt like really wedged in the last 3 minutes to me. But like overall, like you and I both, like, man, tell the stories we want to hear. Like there was a lot of meat on that bone that you and I were both like, boy, like there was some shady backroom business deals that went down. And like it also like it explains a lot about like why Jerry Briscoe was at his side for so long. Was like, dude helped him steal a company. Plain and simple. Like, and that's fine. Like, and nowadays you couldn't do it, but like back then, like, that's how it was. And I'm sure he was getting followed by people like, and he had hits out on him. I'm sure that's how it was, but also like, why were we seeing him so much, like him and Pat Patterson, like, because like he literally, like, now we know that story of like why he was always by his side. I still want to know the Kevin Dunn story of why he had a job for as long as he did, but or saving the tapes.
I think because Kevin Dunn's old man, I think, worked for Vince's old man.
Well, is he the ones that saved the tapes from the fire too? I forget that story.
Yes.
Yes. So.
I mean, Vince was a very loyal person. I mean, again, it's a very complicated human being. So it's not, but it's not. I know everyone likes to look at everything as like good versus evil, but it's sometimes it's tough in people's mind to reconcile multiple things at the same time. So sexual abuse, horrible. All the people that he paid to put into drug rehab, all the people who he kept on the payroll for many, many years. So again, it's just, there's good, there's bad, there's horrible, there's great. I mean, it's just very complicated. So it's not as simple as good versus evil. You have to talk about everything. Okay, so Shawn, almost had him there.
Almost.
Man, these guys, I could watch these guys wrestle. This is where having more pay-per-views, having more TV time, like, you just wonder what these guys could have done if there was, more time to fill.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think about like, and I know they like worked it in your house together, but it's like, man, give these guys like multiple pay-per-views. Like, can you imagine these guys in a ladder match? I just feel like there was so much opportunity there with these guys.
So we've got a couple more Owen Hart matches. We've got one, him as the Blue Angel taking on Barry Horowitz, actually. We actually talked to Barry Horowitz about that one. We've got him and Bulldog for the European Championship. And then it is out there. This is a dark match from Wrestle Challenge in 1994. It was a 27-minute match with Owen and Brett taking on the Steiner brothers. The full footage is out there. So I have that one on our card as well here too. And so it just,
dude, that is so funny you said that, because I just saw it. Maybe did we both see the same tweet about that match?
Could have been.
Is that what you? Okay, I meant to send it to you and I didn't. You and I hadn't talked about that. I saw a few highlights from that. Oh my goodness, that looked awesome.
I don't know, for whatever reason right now my algorithm is like tapped into like dark matches, and so I saw like a
Yeah.
Shawn 2 minutes from a Shawn Austin one, like, and then of course
Yeah.
I try and find the whole thing, but yeah, the Steiner one from Wrestling Challenge, I found the whole thing, and so don't have it slated, but have it amongst one of our many matches we will eventually cover. So we'll do some dark matches here coming up here. I'll get some on the calendar. I don't have any right now, but I will. Yep.
All right, so Sean's set up for Sweet Chin Music. This has been a fantastic match, by the way. I
Clearing
mean,
up the band,
obviously,
yeah.
look at these guys. Yeah. Boom. Okay. So hits him with the Insiguri.
And well, Michaels is down. Yep.
All right, now he's going for the sharpshooter. Pokes his eye out. Sean's selling it pretty good.
Everybody, a lot of people, not on their feet, but yep, kind of cheering and stuff like that. It looks like, yep. Yeah, just kind of high flying, good action. Like, yeah, they're really like working real hard in the ring
Boom.
here.
Okay, so Shawn knocks Owen out, comes back on the ropes. He's dancing. Oh,
Oh,
grabbing his head, and he just collapses.
we got Cornette and Fuji ringside trying to help Owen back up. Earl Hebner, not sure what to do here. Kicking Michaels, like, hey.
And by the way, when I was watching this live, and again, I'm 11 years old at the time, bought every second of it, right?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I was just like that. And again, I remember at this point, I knew it was all work, and I thought this was. I'm like, oh my god.
Yep. Checking on him.
I mean, how good was this?
Owen trying to act.
And look at Owen selling it. Like Owen doing exactly what you would do, right? Like he's not over the top. He's not like being pro wrestler.
He's not going to attack him
McMahon
either.
In there. Yeah, you got McMahon in there. And remember, McMahon didn't do this stuff. Now so now we come back and they're giving him oxygen. McMahon, I mean, dude, this is
That's how you sell it.
How could this be any better, right? And remember, no commentary. It's all silent.
Kind of work it. Yep. You got the paramedics in the ring now, kind of.
Yeah, the way he fell down was just so good. You know, it's funny. I don't know if you notice this or not. I'm sure you do on Twitter, but like, I feel like the dirt sheet industry is more under attack than it's ever been.
Oh yeah,
and you have two factions, right? I think you have a lot of fans that are like, "Hey, you're wrong quite a bit," and you force your opinions on us as news. And then the thing that I've been saying too is like, is it really doing the business a service to like try to spoil things, right? Because that's the other thing too. And it's like, you know, if Meltzer was to report in advance of this, hey, they're going to do an angle where, you know, Shawn's going to fake a head injury. Like, how's that good for the business? Like, how are spoilers? Like, I guess my whole thing is like, what value are these people? You know, like, I just don't know what value they provide to the business. You know, you have someone reporting the news in the Middle East about a war. That's good for the public, right? That's good for people to know these things are happening. Reporters, journalism, they serve a purpose. They find bad things happening. They expose corruption. What good do these guys do? And so their entire business model is based on spoiling things. And if they can't spoil things and they're not accurate, they have no income, they have no purpose. So it's just very contentious right now, where you have like the Fightful folks that are like digging their heels in because it's their job. And if their credibility is questioned, right, wrong, or otherwise, it hurts their subscriber numbers.
Yeah, and it's so, and I think so we're going off the air now at this point. We can continue.
Okay,
this.
So that's it.
Yeah.
So we go off the air with. I mean, how good was that?
Yeah, for real. Like, yeah.
So any other before we transition?
Yeah, to kind of put a bow on it. Yeah,
I mean, if you noticed that as well.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too, and you and I have talked about it before here too. Like, I've seen a lot too of like Triple H needs media training for when he's doing these press conferences and stuff like that. But also, like, okay, I say you're walking the line here. Like, you've got some people that they're letting in that are asking kayfabe questions and are like, playing up to the storyline. But then you have other people that are like, hey, I heard that, London might be getting, WrestleMania one day. What's the deal? Like, like legitimate reporters asking stuff. And so I think that they need to figure out where the line is on that. Like, are you going to have a in-character press conference, or are you going to keep doing, or have a real press conference? Maybe you separate them, maybe you do something else. And yeah, Triple H talking off the cuff, about, like, that's just what it is. Like, dude's better at media than you and I are, like, and you and I are, we do public speaking a lot of times, but like, dude has been in front of the camera. He knows what he's doing. Like, he's going to misspeak every once in a while. That doesn't mean that he should get fired for any of this shit. Like, just dumb as can be, when you're talking about that stuff. But yeah, I'm with you. I think we always say, like, we put too much credibility with some of that stuff too. And I think a little bit of that falls on us. And so we need to all of us need to work on that. But yeah, it's weird. So yeah.
Cool. All right, let's get to the aftermath.
Oh, it's time for the aftermath.
All right, so kind of a unique one. It's more about the angle than the match, but
yep.
Watching it back, what'd you think?
Yeah, it's interesting. It was actually a really good match too, which I thought was interesting. We forget about that they did have a really good match, even though there was so much of the storyline, leading up to that. And so, yeah, I thought it's just really good overall.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it as well. You're right. The match was, even though it wasn't about the match was still fantastic. And that's why I'm like, these two go in 20, 25 minutes. What's not to love, both in their peak. And then Jeff, the angle, I mean, again, I can't stress enough how different that was even now. And it's, I guess you could argue a little risky in terms of it's so different and head injuries, but man, it worked really well. And you talk about, I mean, it's got to be one of the better positioning ever of a baby face. Like, how do you not love Shawn Michaels after that? You're like, this guy gets beat up by a bunch of, people in a parking lot, and he comes back and he's got the head injury. The only thing, it's just funny. It's like the only thing I think maybe in hindsight you would have done differently is like maybe not having Brett as your champ. Because then like all of this leads to babyface versus babyface, which was a little confusing. Like you'd think all of this would lead to, Owen is your champion or some other dastardly heel as your champion. I mean, Diesel, I guess at this point is a heel too. It's almost like, and I guess my assumption would be that in this era, they just didn't want to do rematches. But, wouldn't you think that, like, imagine Shawn after this somehow defeats Owen and then he ends up against Diesel, who's your world champion, heel. How's he going to beat him? He lost to him last year at WrestleMania. it almost feels like that would have been better than all of this leading to him going against another babyface who's been the biggest star of your company for the past 3 years. So,
Yeah.
anyways.
Yeah.
So what happens after this?
It is interesting. Yeah. You bring up a lot of interesting points here, but yeah. So Shawn on this one, we know, collapsed in the ring. It was scripted, it's kept from the fans, working us at this point. They wrote a retirement angle as well too, teased that a little bit, but he actually came back at Royal Rumble in 1996. So took, about 2 months off, give or take, a little bit more than that.
And I'll tell you that press conference. So they did a press conference leading into Royal Rumble, and go back and watch. I mean, Shawn, just the way that it was presented. Like I still remember it all these years later, and I haven't seen it in years, but it was like the realism that it was. Like I'm gonna come back. I'm doing this for the fans. I'm going to win the Royal Rumble. I'm going to go to WrestleMania. I'm going to steal the show. And then they had the music video that went along with it. I mean, it was just so good.
Yep.
So good. Yep.
Yeah. Played it up quite a bit here. And so, of course, winning the Royal Rumble, so getting that championship match at WrestleMania 12. We all know how that played out, the Iron Man match with Brett as well, too. And then later, then we get the Click and later in 1996 as well, too, and the curtain call incident there. And so a lot happening. But yeah, Shawn, obviously, this was just the start of that and kind of him taking off. Owen, on the flip side, him and Yokozuna would continue to tag team through the end of 1995. You then had Davey Boy Smith turning heel, joining Camp Cornette as well, too. And so that little stable, Vader was a part of that as well, too. You had Owen winning the Slammy Award. He started playing up the Michaels injury, and so winning the Slammy Award for that. And so did color commentary for the King of the Ring as well, too. And so, yeah, it just kind of it didn't necessarily have the trajectory that Michaels had, but still involved, still doing a lot. So, 1995, Shawn PWI was 12, or excuse me, Owen was 12, Shawn was 2. A big write up on the torch here, in an angle that was sure to be talked about in the wrestling community all week. Shawn Michaels collapsed in mid-ring during his match with Owen Hart after over 10 minutes of the best wrestling action of the weekend on television or pay-per-view. Michaels sent Owen over the top rope to the floor. As Owens was recovering, Michaels began celebrating mid-ring. He danced and suddenly reached for his head and collapsed to the mat. The match stopped. Paramedics came to the ring. The show went off the air for several minutes later with no commentary, but footage of concerned fans, some crying. Michaels, in reality, is taking time off for undisclosed reasons, but should be back in time for the hype for WrestleMania. Some believe Michaels is still suffering medical complications from the Syracuse out-of-ring incident. Others think others think it's to get out of the mix while WWE is having problems in order to be shot in the arm when he returns. And others speculate it's just for other personal reasons. The Observer on this one, playing off Michaels' legit injury a few weeks back after being assaulted. Collapsed in the middle of a hot main event with Owen Hart, stayed there for the remainder of their show, teasing either a stroke or a brain aneurysm. He just passed out, bro. Calm down. A little concern, gave him oxygen. The angle was convincing enough that from our reports, the majority who attended the show live believed it wasn't an angle. Initially, those live believed it was, but got played up stronger. Most seemed to believe it was real. Most phone calls here that viewed it on television knew it was an angle, but many didn't. And so that's how it should be, though. You should be blurring that line. We shouldn't know. We should know what's going on. Like you said, okay, collapse, no big deal. We see that all the time. But on the flip side, you can bring paramedics in. They're actually, you don't have Owen stomping on him again, things kind of moving on. And so, so this one, there's no ratings out on this one, which there wouldn't be. But where are you going to put this one, Tom?
Man, I'm giving this a 9.
Oh, wow.
Because I just thought it was as good as pro wrestling gets. You have your baby face, you have your heel. you've got this story of Owen being the heel with the brother Brett, and we're going to Shawn Brett at WrestleMania, and you had the real life situation, and then you have the this angle, and this angle's building to winning the Rumble. I mean, again, to me, this is as good as pro wrestling gets. It blurs the line. You have good versus evil. You've got great athleticism. The acting, if you will, of Cornette and Owen and Shawn is off the charts. Vince was great. They did the silent commentary thing. The last thing I'll say is anytime you can do something that's way different in the pro wrestling industry, is great. It's just we've seen everything 100 times. So when you do something, and it doesn't always work, that could have backfired. That could have been hokey. That could have crushed Shawn. It could have been cheesy. Any number of things, right? It could have been offensive, and how could you, fake head injuries? And again, it's not like it was guaranteed to be a slam dunk, but that was just as good as I think it gets. So I absolutely loved it. And again, as I look at everything from that point to WrestleMania 12, my only criticism is, gosh, if Shawn could have been feuding with heels, it would have been better. The other thing too, that's interesting is it goes to show you how good wrestling is now.
Yeah. In
that era, you just look at, we're talking about Aldo Montoya. We're talking about the 1-2-3 Kid. We're trying to find people for Shawn Michaels to feud with that year as champion, right? You look now and you're like, okay, so take a Shawn Michaels type, in that era, but put him now and imagine the head injury, but then you have to overcome Damian Priest or Drew McIntyre or a heel Kevin Owens or AJ Styles or Shinsuke Nakamura. We could go on and on, you know what I mean? Or a Logan Paul. Or a Roman Reigns. It's just incredible. And I just named heels off the top of my mind. It's just amazing how much better it is now in that regard of how deep it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is just. It's really crazy, when you think about it. And like I said, I think for me, I'm only giving it an 8. I understand why you're where you are. I don't know why, other than just kind of this was the setup. We knew what came after it. Yeah, if I was basing it on what came off after, you got to give it a 10. But this was just the setup for me, so I'm putting it at an 8. I think too, trick us. There are times in the past year where you and I have both texted each other on separate occasions to be like, is this happening? What's going, are we getting worked? Are we not getting worked? Are we getting shoot worked? What's going on here? Is it a shoot and then it turns into a work? What's happening here? And I think especially nowadays, you and I talk about it, they say, WWE will say that's they're not in the PG era anymore, but you and I have referred to it as kind of the reality era of you need to blur those lines. And this is exactly how it kind of played out with, this of at the time we weren't thinking of that, but he had been attacked, or assaulted outside the bar. People knew that had happened. And then on the flip side, okay, let's play into this a little bit. Maybe he is legitimately hurt, and you kind of wonder what's happening and what's going on. And so that's where I'm at with some of this of, blur the lines for me, make me question what's happening. And so that's why I did enjoy the angle as much as I did and do, is because confuse me a little bit and make it worth it. And it absolutely was. So yeah. Good
Loved
stuff
it.
though. I'm glad there's a lot to talk about with it. And that's what we like around here. Yep.
Oh yeah. This was a really fun one. And again, matches are matches, but sometimes it's fun to cover these infamous and big time angles and talk about them as well. And yeah, it's been fun. I love covering. I love covering all this stuff. It's fun to look back at them, and the good and the bad. It's. I was laughing the other day at how bad that uncensored cage match was that we watched. But it's good. It's just good to cover. Just good to cover all this stuff. And so, what do we have next week?
What do we have next week? Taking a look at here. So we're doing Lucha Underground. I found the full match.
Oh, that's right.
Us. And so Rey Mysterio versus Prince Puma, also known as Ricochet. And so it was actually no need to pirate here. Lucha Underground's website, our YouTube page, has the full match. And so we'll get into that, tell that story. I have no clue what's going to happen to that or in that. And so that should be really interesting to see here. We're getting into July, August at this point, and so we're in July, late July. We're going to do Monday Night Raw again. I have Edge, John Cena, and Rob Van Dam taking on each other. No champion or a championship match, no DQ. We've got what else do we got here? A couple SummerSlam matches as well too here. Another versus Steve Austin, of course, for the Intercontinental Championship match. Got to cover that one. We got Lex Luger and Tatanka. We're bringing back Tatanka for that one. We're going to talk to him about that match and kind of doing that. We got all kinds of good stuff. I got of course, the much talked about by Hulk Hogan, Brock Lesnar, Hulk Hogan match as well, too. Got to talk about that one. So we've got some stuff here. One I'm not looking forward to, a little ways out here. I've got slated Goldberg taking on Sting on Nitro for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. Yeah, I know. So, but I also have our first Mark Henry match as well too. So I got some exciting stuff happening here.
I'm excited. Wow, this will be a lot of fun. So, well, good episode. Appreciate everyone listening. We'll see you next week on an all new episode of